let's start with I guess the salutations, congratulations in the first place there to get into November. How important was that for you to show that, there's a lot of Republicans in this district and there's a lot of people who maybe just want to turn out for somebody different than what's considered this Kern County GOP tree?
Well, I mean, I think that you're spot on with the fact that, I think a lot of people are ready for some type of change. I think they like the idea of having an alternative option when it comes to the elected person into this seat. In this race, we're going to have two Republicans, which gives people, two completely different perspectives and backgrounds going into this election, and I think that's healthy. I think that's a good perspective for people. I think that's a good option for people, and quite frankly, a democracy would demand that we have those types of options.
What have you learned so far from this first round of the fact that you're able to make it to November? Is there anything that from this first round of campaigning that you touched up on and you say, oh, maybe there's something different that we can do? I know it's still a long way to go.
Well, what I always fall back onto is Reagan's rule where you don't attack another Republican, right? And so I found it, disheartening and disappointing that our own Republican side came out with negative against me, thousands of dollars against me. And so what I would do differently would be no different. I'm not into the slander. I'm not into the bad talking. I'm into telling you what I can do. And this is what I represent, and here's my history. And so give the voter an option. Just take a look at that. I'm disheartened at the fact that a lot of voters don't pay attention, and maybe the messaging is important to get out to people to make sure that they know there's options and what's happening. As we spoke earlier, the confusion in the election alone, I think I've explained multiple times, as I would argue you have too. But I think it would be refreshing to see two people just debating their issues, being able to talk about how they believe, what their history is, and what they can present, versus let me talk about how bad the other guy is so you vote for me. I just don't think that's the best way to go.
How focused are you on getting top two for this special election for May? I know that it's one of these tough things where you're going to be, going up against this short window. Turnout might be lower. What's the strategy there?
Yeah.
Turnout might be lower.
It's a short window, and I think voters are confused. As from March 5th to March 19th, I'm not sure that there's going to be much difference in the tallies as we come into May. There is obviously the opportunity for someone to have 50+1, and if they do, they go on to finish the seat. And I don't see the number statistically on the laws of average happening that way, just because of the short window between the 5th and the 19th. But we'll see. We'll see. It does take a long time to calculate those votes, so we may not see until coming into April.
Well, we spoke with Vince Wong too. He said the message for him has stayed the same. Does the message stay the same for you if you're not in a runoff in May?
My message is the same. I don't think that we change. I know that he has a focus in what he believes, and I respect Vince. I think I respect him, and I just wish the negative wouldn't have come into play. It's disappointing, but I will say that the voters have the option of two qualified candidates in this race. Yeah, my message is not going to change. I'm not going to come out and slander him. I'm not going to come out and say what he can't do. Again, I'll focus on what I can do and what I've done, and hopefully the voters see my way.
Yeah, it's really seemed like a bit of aside from two different Republicans running different geographic areas.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly, it's a good point. Kern County doesn't know me as well. They're starting to warm up a little bit to me because I'm down here more, I'm visiting more, and people are starting to learn more about me, which I think is nice, and that gives voters the option of do we want to maintain the local perspective, or do we want to broaden our perspectives and have a little bit of a global approach? Because there's other counties in this district that are equally as important. Fresno County, Tulare, and Kings all need representation, not just Kern. But I have family here as well, that we've talked about before. Every time I come into Bakersfield, I feel like I'm home. But having said that, people don't know me as well. And so that's part of, when you asked earlier, what would we change? I would think that we need to make sure that people in Kern know who I am, and that they're comfortable in a decision if they so chose to go my direction.
Do you understand a concern where people would suggest, you know, we love Vince and Shannon because they're here in the county. That was the concern from voters. I know that obviously you say, and I'm sure you would be someone who's supportive of them 100%, but you would be probably still living in Tulare County for the most part.
Well, for the most part, in Tulare, I'm in the middle. Kern County wouldn't be losing anything. If anything, it would be that I would make sure that getting into office that they were comfortable in the vote that they made for me, that they didn't lose anything. They just had a different perspective. And you know, for me, you know, when I ran for sheriff, Vince Wong endorsed me for sheriff. Shannon Grove endorsed me for sheriff. And so as we move forward, I think it's important for voters to understand that I'm not this guy that proclaimed to be in the mailers and the flyers and the TV ads. I'm really a Second Amendment strong conservative. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in a strong and secure border. And so if they endorsed me before and he's not endorsing me now, what's changed other than we've become rivals, so to speak, in an election? But I get that, you know, that people in Kern County, they want a hometown person, and I respect that. But then again, let's take a look at the global approach for the district as a whole and what I bring. I think there's two completely different perspectives here. For me, I have 38 years of law and order. I believe in law and order, and it's time to bring law and order back into our district, back into our state, back into our country. I have a strong law and order and justice for victims and accountability to criminals. But I also have a strong idea in regards to our energy when it comes to protecting Kern County and its oil industry, when it comes to the Central Valley and the ag and the water and the need for sustainable water. But we also got to quit overspending in our country, and all of that I have lived as sheriff. I deal with families who are in poverty. Sometimes they don't eat 2 or 3 days at a time because they can't afford food. These are the real life experiences that I bring to Congress that, you know, Vince Wong won't be able to bring. He hasn't been in the streets dealing with people in poverty. He has not dealt with the victims of human trafficking. I have. And I've also dealt with bad legislation as law enforcement. You know, it's time that we bring law and order back. It's time that we have real life experience in a brand new perspective with the idea that the laws that I would vote on or the budget that I would vote on impacts people on a real life level. And that's what I bring different than maybe Vince does.
And I guess maybe going to that elephant in the room, amnesty commercial.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Sure,
So
let's do it.
what is your policy on the border, and what is it different than that commercial may portray?
You know, that commercial is so funny because it's broken up into different categories and pieces. For one, Vince Wong is the assemblyman that could have easily pushed back against Sanctuary State and Senate Bill 54. He didn't. And so because of that law, I as the sheriff, I can't ask someone their immigration status. I can't even remotely contact Immigration Custom Enforcement because there's a law in place that doesn't allow me to do that. So now you're criticizing me for a law that you didn't push back on, and I have to enforce as the sheriff. Now, does that mean I believe in it? No, I don't believe in it. There's laws in place. There's laws in place about the legal way to come into this country. I believe in that. But I'm also the sheriff who had to deal with bad administrations, an open border that allowed people to come into this country. Mostly what I'm referring to is Mexican nationals coming into our area who are working, thriving, prospering, and they have children that were brought here when they were infants, 18 months old. So when the commercial talks about Obama's policy, what I'm referring to is DACA children. We have children who don't know any better. They are now 25 years old who believe they're American citizens. Is that who we deport first? No, I think we need to have a plan. I also believe DACA needs to go away. So there's a lot of aspects to what I believe because I've lived in the Central Valley. Now, I'm not talking about people coming across the border from Yemen, Syria, places and countries of origin who want to kill Americans. What I'm talking about is people who have been living here for the last 20 years. If you have a dairyman that's been on the dairy working and he's here undocumented, but he's been working and thriving on that dairy, is that who we deport first? What I'm talking about is a plan. What is our plan? First and foremost, secure the border. Secondly, we need to identify those who are most egregious and felonious people hiding in the shadows, that we need to identify and get rid of them. Then we need to start identifying, what are we going to do with these DACA children? DACA children who have nowhere to go. They have no family in Mexico to go to because their life has been living here. So when you talk about that commercial, there's bits and pieces pulled out that make it sound as if I'm an open border policy amnesty candidate, which in fact, that's not the case. Secure border, follow the laws that we have in place, but yet we need to have a plan to deal with the people who are here. And what do? Do you round them all up and get rid of them? Do you start with the dairymen? Do you start with the DACA? No, you have to have a formidable plan. And so that's what I believe in.
Would you have, voted to impeach Secretary Mayorkas?
Yes. The man has failed his job, and he has placed this country in jeopardy. Now, having said that, he's following the direction of his boss, who is Biden. The Biden administration has failed us, and he's following those orders and direction. But quite frankly, he was placed into that position to do a job. If you were to do that in the business world, you'd be first to be fired because you're unsuccessful. I would have voted to impeach for sure.
And I guess the follow-up to that, too, is that there's been this border legislation that Republicans and Democrats were passing forth between each other. I know the common Republican argument is Biden can do all this with a single executive order. Do you share that same view?
Well, what they were doing is putting money into processing people faster. That doesn't do us any good. What does us good is securing the border immediately, what Biden can do with the swipe of a pen. You can put more judges along the border to start the judicial process. You can begin to evaluate who is eligible, who's not, who meets the legal standards, who does not. But the money was going to nothing more than expediting the paperwork and the policies that the Biden administration has in place. There was no effort to put more border patrol, more wall along the border, more efforts for judicial processes. There was no effort at all to secure that border more than encourage more and more people to come through and process the paperwork faster. That's all that was doing, and I wouldn't have voted.
And what about this Border Patrol Council endorsing your opponent, Vince Wong? What was your thoughts and reactions to that?
Well, it's funny because when you have endorsements, not once did they interview me, right? They didn't interview me, which goes right along with the Donald Trump endorsement. It's funny, in the interview that we had on TV, Vince Wong didn't even know where the endorsement came from, which tells me that McCarthy pulled a political favor to get the endorsement of Trump, and he also pulled a favor for the Border Patrol endorsement. They don't even know who I am. So if they were to interview me and understand what I've done for the Central Valley as well as visiting the border, I don't know that they would have done that without a political favor coming from McCarthy. Now look, McCarthy and Vince, they're friends. I don't fault that. They're friends, they're working together, and I would hope that my friends would work together with me. And so I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think it was earned, because I want to know what has Vince done to earn the endorsement of either one when all he's been is a legislator, failed at that, in the California legislature.
Well, let's talk about the friends that you do have. We know you had a lot of friends up in Fresno and to the north, but what about the friends locally here in Kern County that may make a difference for people too? People who like Donnie Youngblood and people who like State Senator Shannon Grove. What do those two endorsements in particular mean for you?
Well, to me, those are incredibly important to me, in addition to, if I can talk about, we also received the Bakersfield Police Officers Association endorsement. That's big. That's the men and women working the streets each and every day who understand that we need someone in office representing public safety. The Kern County Law Enforcement Association, which represents the district attorney investigators as well as Kern County deputy sheriffs, both in the jail and on the street. All of those endorsed Mike Boudreaux. We believe, and they put their trust in behind me, they know that I'm not an open border amnesty candidate. They know that I believe in a strong border. They know that I believe in public safety, and they know that I'll fight for them. When it comes to Shannon Grove and Donnie Youngblood, those endorsements don't come easily. They were going to stay very neutral in this race, but they've worked with me for the last 15 years. They know me, they know my character, they know what I can and cannot do and what I have done. I have a track record that they can put their name behind. And quite frankly, I value Sheriff Donnie Youngblood and Senator Shannon Grove's endorsement more so than I even do Trump, because these are the people who work for me, or with me, not for me, but work with me. And they work with the people of this county. They have developed a trust and a working relationship with the people in this county. They're very well respected, political, elected people. And to get their their endorsements along with the Bakersfield Police Officers Association and Kern County Law Enforcement, that should send a very strong message to people that they believe that I'm the guy for public safety. They believe I'm the guy that should be representing them in Congress.
You pretty much just answered this next question. I was going to ask you, what do you hope people know about you here that they don't already?
Well, I think, what's important to understand is right now people are frustrated. They're angry with the border. They see the news each and every day with thousands of people coming across that border. I'm equally as frustrated. I, as the sheriff and law enforcement up and down the Central Valley, Tulare County, Kern County, I feel that frustration. I know it. I live it. And so what I want people to know is that don't be influenced by a negative ad. Do your research. Take a look at me. Google me, DuckDuckGo me, whatever platform you use, but take a look at Mike Boudreaux and don't be fooled by a false narrative. Take a look, you'll see that I truly am a law enforcement guy. I believe in our economy, I believe in a strong and secure border, but I also think we need to have plans. I pushed back against Senate Bill 54. That made us a sanctuary state. I was open and out front pushing back against Governor Newsom. I pushed back against Governor Newsom with the mask mandates. I have fought for and against Senate Bill 2, which is taking away our Second Amendment rights. I'm a huge Second Amendment right candidate. And so if they do their research, which I would ask that they do, take a look at Mike Boudreaux and who he is and what his history is, you'll see that you're being a bit deceived by false narratives within commercials, TVs, and mailers. And if they're going to lie to you now, they're going to lie to you in Congress.
Last few questions for you. Let's start with another interesting proposition. This was one that happened, I believe, 8 years ago now, Proposition 47.
Yeah.
Vince Wong, I know, he's on the campaign trail trying to get signatures to overturn that as well. I imagine that's something unpopular for you as well. Can you talk to us about just dealing with that? I imagine on a day-to-day basis.
We deal with it on a daily basis. It'll go to another negative mailer if you want. We can talk about that. I'm up in Fresno getting people to sign the signature pages for Proposition 47. I've been walking the streets getting people to sign for Proposition 47. I was just over at the Kern County Fairgrounds today. There was people, putting out the signature pages for that, and I helped and sat with them for a little bit and helped get some of those signature pages done. That's an important thing. And I applaud anybody doing that. Proposition 47 is a failure. Proposition 47 is what has increased our homeless population, which has increased our mental health issues up and down the state in our jail system as well as on our streets. Proposition 47 is one of the reasons that I had to release somebody under the sanctuary state SB 54 and Proposition 47. So SB 54, a sanctuary state, I cannot ask or work with ICE in regards to your immigration status. Proposition 47 is a misdemeanor crime. This person that come into my jail was arrested for drunk driving. So I don't get to check on his background. So we had to release him. He was released under a failed SB 54 on Proposition 47. He's the one who went on a reign of terror and ended up shooting and killing a friend of mine's brother right in my county. My deputy's gotten a shootout with this guy. The negative mailer says that I released him because I wanted him to be released. No, I was following the law. I was following Proposition 47 and Senate Bill 54. Don't ask me not to obey the law as a sheriff and then criticize me for following the law later, saying that I'm the one who supports it. I don't support it. Proposition 47 is a failure, and the more people that can sign the signature page to get it on the ballot to vote it out of position, that would be fantastic.
And then the last couple questions for you. Vince Wong, again, we've said his name a few times. He has this lawsuit overhead from the Secretary of State's office. Is that something where you feel like you would try to talk about him being in two different races at the same time, or is this an issue that you don't want to touch and you don't want to criticize him for?
I'm not going to criticize, Vince for that. He obtained a lot of votes coming into this congressional race. That's something that the courts are going to definitely have to decide. I think the rules were clear. I don't see how they were confusing, but that's not for me to get in the middle of, and it's going to be a bigger issue if, I think he's already won the assembly race, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. And being on, be honest, being on two different tickets, it really makes no sense. It disenfranchises the voters that are confused. I've received, I don't know how many different phone calls of confused voters. I would hope that whatever the court rules is that when we move forward that it's definitely not something people can do. Otherwise, I would run for Board of Supervisor, District Attorney, and Sheriff at all the same time.
You're going to have 25 to 35% of your voters possibly are not necessarily your voters, but they're Democrats who are looking for a place to go. And I know it can be a politically risky game, probably for both yourself and Mr. Fong, to look for, to go to a Republican or to try and appease the Democrats. What's your strategy to win over these voters who didn't vote for you in this first round and maybe still haven't voted and will vote in the general?
Yeah, and I think that's important. I, as sheriff, I don't get to pick and choose if you're a Democrat or Republican, if I'm going to enforce the law or if I'm going to serve you in a public safety session. So for me, it's never been partisan. We have to serve the people who live here, whether that's Democrat, Independent, Republican. I think it's easy. I think it's simple. We go in to serve the people. We don't go in to serve a party. And for the Democrats that are out there, I would say take a look at how I have done as the sheriff over the last 38 years. I have been right in the middle, working with everybody. I have worked with both sides of the aisle. Now, there is staunch positions that I set on as a Republican that I believe in. I'm pro-life. I believe in pro-life, and I won't ever waver from that. That goes against a lot of Democrats' viewpoints when it comes to that. But I also believe that, we have labor that needs to be taken care of because our labor force needs to be increased. I think we need to put more and more people back to work. And so there's issues that I think that I could see on both sides of the aisle that we can work for in a happy medium to really do good for the district. And so to my Democrat voters, I would say, hey, take a look at my history, and I think that you'll be happy with that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming down. We really appreciate it on such short notice and after such a big day for you yesterday.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.